Welcome to today's deep dive, where we're going to be tackling a theory that, well, paints a pretty unsettling picture of where industrial civilization might be headed.
It's called the Olduvai Theory.
Right, the Olduvai Theory, and maybe spoiler alert, but it suggests that our modern way of life might not be around as long as, well, we might hope.
And what's really striking about this theory is that it's not just some, doomsday prediction pulled out of thin air. It's actually rooted in data, hard data.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fascinating, right?
Exactly.
So we're going to be diving into excerpts from a 2007 paper by Dr. Richard C. Duncan.
The title's a bit ominous, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's called the Olduvai Theory, Terminal Decline Imminent. The word imminent definitely makes you sit up and take notice.
It does. It kind of sets the tone, doesn't it?
It really does.
Like, okay, buckle up. This is going to be a ride.
Exactly.
So the core of this theory, this Olduvai theory, it hinges on this concept of what Duncan calls E, which is energy production per capita.
Right. Think of it as like the average amount of energy each person has access to.
So like the fuel that powers our modern lives, essentially.
Exactly. Everything from our gadgets and gizmos to, our transportation systems and even our food production.
It's the juice that keeps the whole machine running.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the theory says that as he increases, so does a society's capacity for, well, complexity and advancement and all those things we associate with progress.
Right. But, and this is a big but, he doesn't just keep going up forever.
Oh, there's the catch.
There's always a catch, right?
Always.
According to the Olduvai theory, he inevitably hits a peak, plateaus for a bit, and then, well, starts to decline pretty rapidly.
And he's arguing that we've already passed that peak.
That's what he's suggesting, yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty unsettling, to say the least.
It is.
And Duncan breaks down this whole decline into 3 phases, right?
He does, yeah. There's the growth phase, the stagnation phase, and then, well, the one nobody wants to talk about, the terminal decline phase.
Yeah. Right, let's unpack those a little bit, because I think those are really key to understanding how this theory works.
Okay, so the growth phase, that's when you see this rapid increase in both energy production and population, which leads to a sharp rise in Z. It's like everything's booming, there's a sense of progress and abundance.
Okay, so like the good times, essentially.
Well, seemingly good times, at least on the surface.
Right.
Then things start to slow down, you enter the stagnation phase, energy production and population are still increasing, but at a much slower rate.
So it kind of levels off.
It does, yeah. You get this plateau effect, which, according to Duncan, the U.S. experienced for about 28 years.
And globally, we might be in that plateau right now. Is that what you're saying?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, so then comes the big one. Terminal decline. What happens in that phase?
Well, that's when energy production really starts to plummet.
And why is that?
It's likely due to a bunch of factors, resource depletion being a big one.
Right, we're running out of the stuff we need to keep the lights on.
Exactly, and then you've got environmental degradation playing a role.
The planet's kind of pushing back, saying, hey, enough's enough.
Yeah, you could say that.
So energy production goes down. And what about the population? What happens to all of us?
Well, the population might actually keep growing for a while, at least initially, but eventually it has to decline too.
Because there's just not enough energy to support that many people.
Right, exactly. It's like trying to keep a car running on fumes. Eventually it just sputters out.
And this rapid decrease in E,
Mm-hmm.
that's what Duncan sees as the death knell of industrial civilization.
That's the essence of his argument, yeah.
It's a pretty bleak picture, I gotta say.
It is. There's no sugarcoating it.
But if this theory is so compelling, why aren't we talking about it more?
That's a good question.
Duncan himself points out that, the media seems really reluctant to engage in any kind of open discussion about population growth and its connection to all of this.
It's a thorny issue, right? Nobody really wants to talk about overpopulation or the limits to growth or, the possibility that our way of life might not be sustainable in the long run.
It's like we're all kind of collectively trying to avoid the elephant in the room.
It's easier to just keep consuming, keep growing, and pretend that the party can go on forever.
But Duncan's arguing that, well, the music might be about to stop.
And ignoring the problem won't make it go away.
Right. Burying our heads in the sand isn't exactly a winning strategy.
Not in the long run, no.
So where do we go from here? I mean, it's one thing to lay out this theory, but it's another thing to actually wrap our heads around it and figure out what it means for us, for our lives.
I think the first step is just acknowledging the challenge, right? We have to be willing to confront these uncomfortable truths, even if they're, well, kind of scary.
Okay, awareness is the first step. But what's next? What are we supposed to do with this knowledge?
That's the million-dollar question.
And one that we'll continue to grapple with as we dive deeper into the Olduvai Theory.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore the potential impact of this theory on a more personal level. What might declining energy availability mean for our everyday lives? How could our communities and social structures adapt to a world with less? We'll tackle all of that and more next time.
So buckle up, folks, because this ride's just getting started.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the Olduvai Theory, like in this big picture sense, right? Civilizations rising and falling in energy and all that.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious what this terminal decline, like what would that actually look like for us, in our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's where it gets real, doesn't it? Like,
Right.
if Duncan's right,
Yeah.
and this decline really kicks in, we're talking about a world where all the things we take for granted, like just hopping in your car and driving to the store.
Yeah, filling up the tank.
Exactly. Or just flicking a switch and knowing the lights will come on.
Or having like a grocery store full of food from all over the world.
Right. All that could become a lot more difficult, a lot less certain.
It's hard to even imagine, like it'd be such a fundamental shift.
It would, yeah. It'd be like trying to picture life before the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Like try explaining that to someone who grew up with the internet.
Right. It'd be almost impossible.
It's like, it's just so ingrained in how we live now.
Exactly.
And it's not just about like missing out on our creature comforts, right?
No, not at all.
It's about essential services too, like healthcare.
Absolutely. Hospitals rely so heavily on energy, for all their equipment, life-saving equipment.
Yeah, what happens when the power grid starts becoming unreliable?
Yeah, or imagine surgeries being postponed because there's not enough electricity.
That's scary stuff.
It is, yeah.
And food, right? Like we were talking about, grocery stores full of food from all over the world.
Yeah, our modern agricultural system, it's completely dependent on fossil fuels.
From the farm to our tables, basically.
Yeah, every step of the way.
So if energy starts to become scarce and expensive.
Food prices could skyrocket.
Yeah.
Shortages could become common.
And maybe we see a shift back to like more local food production.
Possibly, yeah.
Which I guess could be a good thing in some ways.
It could, yeah. It would definitely force us to rethink our relationship with food.
Yeah, it's like pulling on one thread of this giant sweater.
Yeah.
And the whole thing starts to unravel.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it really shows how interconnected everything is.
Absolutely. That's the nature of complex systems.
Yeah, I guess we've built a pretty complex system with our modern globalized civilization.
We have, yeah.
But, okay, so let's try to find a little bit of a silver lining here.
Okay.
Is there anything positive that could come out of this? Like, if this terminal decline happens, could there be any good that comes from it?
Well, I think it could force us to reevaluate our priorities,
Okay.
Like what's truly important.
Yeah.
Maybe we start to appreciate things we've taken for granted.
Like simple things.
Yeah, like clean air and water.
Yeah.
Or just spending time with loved ones.
Community.
Exactly, community.
So like a return to a simpler life.
In some ways, yeah.
More self-sufficiency.
Right, more focus on local communities.
Growing our own food.
Yeah, maybe learning how to fix things ourselves instead of just throwing them away.
Yeah, like those old-timey skills, they'd be valuable again.
Exactly. It's funny how things come full circle sometimes.
It is, yeah. It's like we started this deep dive talking about like the end of industrial civilization, and now we're talking about like going back to a pre-industrial way of life.
There's definitely a cyclical element to history.
But it doesn't have to be all bad. Right?
No, not at all. I think it depends a lot on how we adapt, how we choose to respond to these challenges.
So not like Mad Max, you're saying?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, good.
I think it's more about, cooperation and community and ingenuity.
Yeah, like coming together to solve problems.
Exactly. Recognizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah, because ultimately, we all share this planet.
We do.
And we got to figure out how to live on it sustainably.
Right. And maybe this terminal decline, as scary as it sounds, could be the push we need to make those changes.
Okay, so maybe a wake-up call.
Yeah, a wake-up call to reevaluate our values, to rebuild our communities, and to create a society that's more in harmony with the natural world.
That's a nice thought.
It is.
A lot to think about, that's for sure.
It is, yeah.
So we've talked about like the big picture implications of the Olduvai Theory,
right.
And we've talked about what it might mean for our everyday lives.
Right.
But I know there are also some criticisms of the theory, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like not everyone's on board with this whole doom and gloom scenario.
Not at all.
All right, so we've we've gone pretty deep into like the what and the why of the Olduvai theory.
Yeah.
But I know there are also folks out there who aren't exactly buying into this whole, civilization's going to crash and burn kind of thing.
Yeah, there are definitely some critics out there.
So what are they saying? Like, what are the main arguments against the Olduvai theory?
Well, one of the big criticisms is that it's just too deterministic,
It's all preordained. There's no escaping this terminal decline.
Exactly. And a lot of critics say that's just too simplistic a view of how things work.
Yeah, like we've got agency, right? We can make choices.
Right. We're not just, robots programmed to follow a predetermined path.
And humans are pretty good at problem solving, right?
Yeah. We've gotten ourselves out of some pretty tight spots in the past.
So maybe we can innovate our way out of this one too.
That's what some people are hoping for.
And there's some pretty promising developments in renewable energy, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like solar and wind power, they're becoming more and more efficient and affordable.
And then there's the whole fusion power thing, which is still kind of, a ways off.
Right.
But if they can crack that nut, that could be a game changer.
Yeah, it could potentially provide us with almost unlimited clean energy.
So yeah, maybe Duncan's being a bit too pessimistic.
Well, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we don't, fully subscribe to his timeline,
Yeah.
I think the theory still raises some really important points.
Like
The fact that we can't just keep consuming resources and growing the population indefinitely.
yeah, there are limits, right?
There are, yeah.
The planet can only handle so much.
Exactly.
So even if, we don't go extinct by 2030 or whatever,
Right.
we still got to figure out how to live sustainably.
Yeah, and I think that's the real value of the Olduvai theory,
Yeah.
even if some of the specifics are debatable.
Okay, so it's a wake-up call, basically.
Exactly. It's a wake-up call to start thinking seriously about the kind of future we want to create.
But, that's a huge task, right?
It is, yeah.
It could feel kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
I get that, yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think, the first step is just being aware of the problem.
Okay, we've talked about that. Awareness.
Right. But beyond that,
Yeah.
I think it's about empowering individuals and communities to take action.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, it could be things like supporting local businesses, reducing your own consumption, exploring alternative energy sources for your home.
So, taking personal responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. It's about realizing that we all have a role to play in this.
Yeah, because, waiting for someone else to fix it,
Right.
that's not really a solution.
It's not, no.
Yeah.
We all got to step up and do our part.
But it can't just be about individual actions, right?
No, you're right.
Don't we also need, systemic change?
We do, yeah.
Policy changes, government intervention, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. We need leaders who are willing to, make tough choices, invest in renewable energy, prioritize the long-term health of the planet.
Yeah, because, short-term thinking got us into this mess.
It did, yeah.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, basically.
It is, yeah.
Individuals, communities, and government all working together.
Right. It's going to take all of us to turn things around.
It's a daunting challenge.
It is.
But I think there's also a sense of hope in all of this. We're not just passively accepting this fate.
No.
We're actively engaging with it,
Yeah.
trying to find solutions.
And who knows, maybe this whole Olduvai theory thing, even if it doesn't play out exactly as Duncan predicted,
Yeah.
maybe it'll be the catalyst that pushes us towards a more sustainable future.
Well, that's a thought I can get behind.
Me too.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the bleak predictions of the Olduvai theory to the possibility of a more localized, sustainable future.
And everything in between.
It's a lot to process, for sure.
It is.
But I think the most important thing is that we keep talking about these issues.
I agree.
We keep asking tough questions, challenging our assumptions, and working together to create a better world.
Yeah, the future's not set in stone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We still have time to make things right.
we do.
So to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Olduvai theory.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving for a brighter